Toluse, also known as Toluse Olorunipa, is the White House Bureau Chief of The Washington Post and the co-author of the book titled His Name is George Floyd, winner of the 2023 Pulitzer Prize for Nonfiction. He joined the Post in 2019 and has covered the last three presidents. Previously, he worked at Bloomberg News and the Miami Herald, reporting on politics and policy from Washington and Florida. Olorunipa has reported from 6 continents and more than 30 countries as part of the presidential press corps. He regularly appears on television, providing commentary to several news channels including CNN, MSNBC, PBS, BBC, NBC, ABC, and CBS. In addition to his 2023 Pulitzer Prize for Nonfiction, he won the 2023 Dayton Literary Peace Prize and was a 2023 Pulitzer finalist for biography, a 2023 Lucas Book Prize finalist, and a 2023 LA Times Book Prize finalist. In 2022, Olorunipa was a National Book Awards finalist, and in 2021, he was awarded the 2021 George Polk Award for Justice Reporting, the 2021 Peabody Award, and the 2021 Shuffle Prize from Arizona State University. Please join me as we welcome our special guest, Mr. Toluse Olorunipa.
I'm very excited and happy to be here. Thank you so much for that introduction. In addition to being excited and happy, I feel very blessed to be here, to be able to share some of my experience. I remember being a part of the young adults program in my church, and just being able to listen to people who were doing things that I wanted to do or doing things that I thought were interesting. It was always very inspirational to me, and to see people who had gone ahead of me and done other things. So I'm very excited to be able to talk and just share a little bit about my experience. It's always a work in progress. We're all learning as we go, but this is a really important and influential community where we can share our experiences, share our struggles, share our triumphs with one another. And I'm happy to answer any questions. So I'm very glad and happy to be here.
Thank you so much for that. We are humbled. We are happy as well to have you here. I really appreciate the just how you spoke about yourself just right now. And just moving on of that, I remember you just said a few things saying that you watched other people do that, which I really loved from the get-go. I just wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit more about that, just with your background, where you're coming from. What does your background look like? Do you believe that for a successful, influential individual, that there is like a turning point in your life? What really changed? What really got you to where you are today?
I definitely stand on the shoulders, like so many of us, of my parents who, were both born in Nigeria and came to the U.S. and have sort of been my rock. And so my dad is a pastor and redeemed, and so I grew up in the church. Grew up sort of just under the knee of the pastors in the church, and trying to get as much knowledge and trying to balance being a child in the U.S. American system while also sort of having that influence from my parents who came from a very different system, and sort of balancing those two things. But I definitely got the benefit of my parents' upbringing and culture, even as I was navigating and trying to learn how to excel in the U.S. and excel in the American system. And so I tried to balance getting the best things that I could from my Nigerian culture, respect for elders, making sure that you are devout and focusing on your faith, and not feeling compelled to follow the crowd, but feeling very comfortable being an outlier, being different, being someone who's a person of faith, even if you're in a place where the people around you aren't like that. And so that really helped me along my journey to make sure that I was always focused on my academics, like we like to do, and always focused on my relationship with God as well. And so as I had more opportunities to sort of excel academically, I saw a number of different doors opening to me, and that opened up the opportunity for me to go into journalism which is not a traditional space in the past, where culturally we've sent a lot of our best and brightest, but it was a place where I thought that I might be able to do some good and do some good work. And I was very excited to have many different opportunities, starting from local newspapers all the way up into going on television and being an analyst and being asked my opinion to talk about American politics and all manner of other different things. And so that's sort of the short version of the journey, but I definitely credit my parents, my church, my experience both balancing my different cultures that I've worked through, and taking the best of all of those different cultures, while also trying to keep it straight, stay on the straight and narrow, and keep an eye on advancing my faith and following the tenets that we learn about from the pulpit, for sure.
Thank you so much for that introduction. So I hear you talk about a lot of things that we're going to just touch and dive a little deeper into each of them. You talked about your faith. You talked about your just the culture, different cultures, sort of not really clashing, but having to navigate both cultures of being Nigerian and having that from your parents, and then of course growing in this Western world and all of that. So those are things that we want to dive a little deeper into. And I think I'll just start off right from the, navigating the two different cultures. So growing here and, of course, being a Nigerian and having that background from your parents and just from even the environment that you grew up in. So I just wanted to ask, was there ever a time that there was a clash, so to say, between both cultures? How did that look like? How did you navigate that? Did it look like prioritizing one over another? What did it look like in terms of shaping you to become the person that you are? And even in regards to opportunities, like making decisions that related to career choices or that related to even your faith. What did it look like?
Multiple clashes along the journey. I'd say one of the biggest one was sort of figuring out what to do career-wise. In my parents' understanding and in our culture, there's a heavy focus on the kinds of careers that are sort of known as prestigious and lucrative. Doctors, lawyers, engineers, and those are really great careers, but I didn't have the talent that that you might expect, you might need, or sort of the drive to go into any of those fields. And so I knew that I was a good writer from a very young age, and I knew I had an interest in the news and in journalism. And so there was a little bit of clash, because that, being a journalist is something that maybe in the Western culture is maybe seen as a little bit more prestigious than it is in the Nigerian culture, especially when I was coming of age. And it's seen as something that you can make a good living doing. And so I think for my parents, from their generation, it wasn't necessarily this is not a good career. It was like there's not necessarily a pathway that you can be sure, as if if you're a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, where you're sure you're going to have a lucrative life, you can be able to provide for your family. Journalism is something that you have to be a little bit more scrappy and sort of make your own way. It's not necessarily a path that is going to be clear. There's not even really a degree that you have to get, or a higher education that you have to do to go into journalism. So the pathway is a little bit less clear. And so that was a little bit of a clash. There were times where, the people that I was speaking to from the Nigerian culture didn't necessarily understand why I was going this pathway, even though, I'd gone to, great schools and had opportunities to do a lot of different things. I took a job right out of college that was not making a lot of money. And so that was something that was a little bit of a clash. You sort of, know in our culture that, your parents invest a lot into you, they invest a lot into your education. And then when you graduate and you start doing well, you're supposed to sort of invest back in them, take care of them, all of the things that they did. So I started off out of college. I was barely making enough to get by. And so there was not going to be any sort of helping my parents, helping pay them back for all they did in that early stage. And so that was a little bit of a clash, both internally and externally. But one of the ways I sort of handled it was sort of, doing as much research as possible, trying to understand the system as well as possible, and having an open conversation with my parents and other people within my community, and just sort of being open and being willing to discuss these things in an open space with respect. We have to have respect for our elders, and also trusting God and making sure that I was praying about all these things, not doing any of these things on my own. With all the research that you do, with all of the background that you do, if you don't have, the leading from God, then, you could be very well researched, but be on the wrong path. And so, I made sure to pray about these things, to trust God, and make sure I was letting my family know that that was the pathway that I was going, based on not only my own research and understanding, but also on the conversation that I had been having with God, and the faith journey that had led me along this path as well.
So just quickly moving on to faith, and just one or two more questions left. I just wanted to ask, so what does ministry look like in the political and journalism space for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. We live in a world where professionally, across most professions, it's not really encouraged to talk about your faith publicly. And so we have to navigate, our professional boundaries, as well as, our faith. And so it's not always been easy, but I've tried to, one, make sure that anything I do professionally is something that I can stand up in front of God and be proud of. And so it's helped me to make sure I'm not cutting corners, that I'm not, trying to take advantage of people, that I have a reputation in my field as someone who is, aside from being, someone who's a person of faith, is someone who's just an upstanding person, someone who follows the rules in a proper way, someone who does things the right way and doesn't try to take advantage of other people. I think that goes a long way. And I think, a lot of times people have sort of kind of asked me, what is it about you that, why are you like this? Why are you, so willing to, sort of be upstanding in a way where in a space and in a place where there's a lot of cutthroat activity, where people try to cut corners, they try to take advantage of other people, they try to take space from other people. And that is an opportunity to share my faith, as an opportunity to let people abide by certain principles, because I am a child of God, and I have been trained up in this way, and I follow a higher law than the law of this profession, or the law of this promotion that people are going for, because I answer to a higher calling. And so I think we're compelled as Christians to be leaders, to not shy away from our faith and the principles that are part of that faith, even if we're not evangelizing in the office every day. The way you live your life, the way you present yourself in the office, the way you present yourself among your coworkers, people will notice if you are different. They'll notice if you are, abiding by certain principles. And people, they might not say it to your face, but they'll respect you for abiding by those principles and being someone who actually has principles. And that's been very true in my space, in the political space, in the space of commentating, in the space of being a public-facing person. I can't go on tell everyone, give your life to Christ right now, because that's not the reason I'm being asked to come on. But I can, talk about things and talk in a way that shows that I have respect for other people, that I'm following, the principles of Christ-like living, that I'm generous, that I'm kind, that I'm willing to share and willing to be honest and honorable. And, those kinds of things, even when they're public facing, that open the door for behind the scenes conversations that can be more, direct about one's faith and one's goal of saving more souls and having more people give their life to Christ. And so it is something that's, that we all have to navigate. But I think, in the professional space, we can all pray to God for guidance about how to, balance being a professional person, being in the secular space, while also showing forth the principles of Christ-like behavior, and making sure that people see us and they see Christ within us, even when we're not quoting scripture or praying in public or praying in the office. People will see us and they'll see Christ in us. And that's sort of the goal of living a very forward-facing life as a Christian in a public space, in a secular space, in a professional space.
Are there core values, or if you could go on and share some of those values? I know you mentioned them, very generally, but are there particular ones that you hold there that you think has made you or helped you to be distinguished in the space that you are, as an influential person or in the political sphere? What are those values? How did you build them? If you could just go ahead and help share that.
Yes, there are many, but I'll hammer on three. One is honesty. No matter what your name is, if your name is something that you sort of need to value because it reminds people of what they think about you when they hear your name. Do they think this person is an honorable person? Can they stand by what you say? And so being honest in all circumstances and situations is a big principle that I rely on. There are so many opportunities to lie, especially in the space of journalism, to mislead, to sort of shade the truth. But I think being honest and answering honestly, even in situations where it might hurt you professionally, or you might think that, you know, you could probably get a professional benefit from being dishonest, honesty over the long haul is so important. And there's a saying in my field that the truth is never as dangerous as a lie in the long term. And so, you know, just maintaining a principle of being truthful at all times is really important. And humility is also really important, especially as, you know, we start to rise in our careers, as we start to do well and excel. Remaining humble is something that people see. They see humility and they see the difference between someone who's humble and who's not humble. And it's one of the key Christ-like principles that you can use to differentiate yourself from other people. If you want to be able to evangelize in the office, if you're humble, it will stand out and people will want to know, they want to get close to you, they want to know why you are the way you are. And so even as you excel, even as you get to higher and higher places, remaining humble, treating people with respect, even if it's the janitor in your office, you know, being friendly to people who are quote unquote lower than you on the professional you know, scale of, you know, of heights. So that kind of humility is very, very important. And then finally, I would say, like, reaching out to other people proactively, even if it's just to ask someone about how they're doing. You know, sometimes as Christians, we feel like we have to be sort of reserved. We can't go out of our way, you know, talk to people because people think we're different or weird, or maybe they'll, you know, be off. They'll see it as off-putting if we, you know, try to talk to them. I think it's sort of incumbent on us to open the door to other people, to put them at ease and to make them feel comfortable. And that is what, you know, we're called to do. We're called to go ye into the world and preach the gospel, but also to share love, to share kindness, to share, you know, good tidings. And that doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, sharing tracts. It can be sharing good positivity, making sure that people feel good, asking them about themselves. And that can open the door to being able to share your faith, because you have built a relationship with someone by asking them how they're doing, by going out of your way to check on them. And so that's a principle that I think is very much connected to my faith, but it's also, you know, relevant and useful in the professional space as well.